Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Gems. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a book haul. I don't normally do my book haul this early in the month, but I have so many on my shelf where I keep my haul books that I thought it was just time to talk about them. A handful of these you will have already seen if you watched my weekend reading vlog a couple weeks ago when it was Independent Bookstore Day at the end of April. And I'm just going to quickly run through those and tell you a little bit about them in case you missed that vlog, or if you're somebody who doesn't watch vlogs. I have those to share with you. I picked up a couple here and there. I have my book of the month books and a book outlet order and a shelf subscription. So let's just jump right in. The first three that I have are books that I just ordered on Amazon. I did have a gift card from you guys clicking on the links that are down in the description. Thank you very much. Every once in a while that adds up and I get a little gift card. So I used some of that money to purchase these three middle grade books, which are ones on our list for our new middle grade March book club. So in December, we're going to be reading Ballet Shoes by Noel Streatfeild. This is a classic middle grade that is made famous for me because of the movie You've Got Mail. So I am very excited to read that. I've never read it. In January of 2024, we're going to be reading The Winter King by Christine Cohen. I really love that cover. I don't really know anything about it except that it's a fantasy. A village trapped in winter, a tyrannical god, and a girl who will do anything to keep her family alive. Fun. And then later this summer, we're going to be reading Three Strike Summer. I think this might be June's book by Skylar Shrimp. Looks like a baseball, kind of like A League of Their Own, but for middle graders. I feel like that's what it is. It's just a very summery read, and I'm so glad that I purchased it. I found another middle grade in a little free library, The Good Thieves by Catherine Rundell. I always love checking little free libraries here and there, and was excited to find this middle grade. Catherine Rundell, the only thing I've read from her is that essay about why adults should read middle grade books. I do have A Wolf Called Wander on my shelves as well. This is the second one of hers that I now own. I need to read some. I only had one little order from Pango this time around. And one of the ones that I got is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I have a couple of her books on my shelves, but I think this is the first one. Like, this is the first in the series. And then Happily Ever Playlist comes next, which I do own. So I needed to get the first one so I could read this. And I'm kind of in a rom-com mood these days. So maybe this will get picked up pretty soon. And then I picked up this nonfiction, Unashamed by Christine Kane. Drop the baggage, pick up your freedom, fulfill your destiny. I have read from Christine Kane before and really liked her. I think I needed to add a little bit to the cart in order to get a discount or free shipping from this shop, or I forget which one it was, but this was the only other one that looked interesting to me. So this is a Christian nonfiction. The two books that I chose from Book of the Month this month, I'm very excited for both of these. The choice that I made from the main options was The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brammer. I had never heard of this before, but when I read the description, I knew this was a Krista book. I believe that we follow Clover. Her name's in the title. We follow Clover, who I think is going to be a death doula. Yeah, she becomes a death doula in New York City ever since her grandfather passed away all on his own, and she just couldn't, that didn't sit well with her. So she just became someone who would sit with people as they were dying. She spends so much time with the dying that she has no life of her own until the final wishes of a feisty old woman send her on a road trip across the country to uncover a forgotten love story and perhaps her own happy ending. I always say that I like books that talk about grief. This is definitely going to be one that attacks that issue. In particular, this young woman who sits with people in their last moments. So I just knew that I had to get that. I'm excited that it's not a very chunky book. Sounds so good. And then I also grabbed The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. This was on my anticipated reads list for May and June. And in this, we follow sisters who are evacuated out of London during the Blitz in World War II. And the older sister tells the younger sister stories. She makes up these kind of fairy tale stories to distract her, keep her occupied, to keep her from feeling the sadness of being separated from their family. Then something happens where the sisters get separated, and years later, this book shows up that has all of these fairy tales in it that she made up when they were young. So she now is wondering if this is from her sister, what has happened to her, do they get reconnected? I don't know, I didn't read through the full description, but I'm very excited about that. It sounds so good. The power of story in the midst of this historical fiction, so good. The books that I grabbed from Independent Bookstore Day, there are quite a few. So this first pile are ones that I bought at a used bookstore. So in honor of Ella Montgomery, one of the prompts on their bingo board is to read some short stories by Ella Montgomery. And so I picked up 2 short story books, After Many Days and Akin to Anne. We have The Book Club by Mary Alice Monroe. I believe this is the one that the movie was made out of. 5 women whose lives get interconnected because of this book club. Sounds very good. The Waterkeeper by Charles Martin is the first in a trilogy, I believe, by him. And I definitely want to read more Charles Martin. I'm currently reading one right now and enjoying it. When I was checking out at this bookshop, the woman who was cashing me out said, "Oh my goodness, that's my favorite." So I'm excited for that. The Lights of Sugarbury Cove just looks like a summery read. Heather Weber wrote Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe, which I really enjoyed. And then a Christian fiction, If I Were You by Lynn Austin. I was thinking this was something else. I was thinking this is the one that was on my anticipated reads list. It's not. Same author, different book by her. This is going to have 2 timelines, 1950 and 1940, so only 10 years apart. Historical fiction, manor house in England. A young woman leaves her England home to come to America with her young son. She's a widowed war bride, but then 10 years earlier, we see what happened in her life before that moment when she comes to America. Should be pretty good. I was so excited to find this one used. Julia and the Shark. This is by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. I love this cover. This is the edition that I really wanted. I've been hearing about this one. I think someone in my middle grade March recommendations video that I do get a whole bunch of different booktubers to recommend a middle grade, someone picked this and I had never heard of it before. I think that it's so cool. The illustrations kind of remind me a little bit of the illustrations in A Monster Calls, but it's about a young girl and she's loses her mom or something along those lines. My name is Julia. This is the story of the summer I almost lost my mom and found a shark older than trees. Don't worry though, that doesn't spoil the ending. So middle grade that I've been craving since the beginning of March. At that same bookstore, I grabbed Julia and the Shark. I also got Ginny Moon by Benjamin Ludwig. This is a book that was recommended during our BookTube Besties virtual reading retreat. We give everybody a chance to recommend a book, and this is one that was brought up at that time and added to my want to read list at that time, and so I was very excited to find that. I grabbed another Fiona Davis, The Lions of Fifth Avenue. This is Fiona Davis writes historical fiction set in New York City about landmark buildings in New York, and this one is going to be about the library, the New York Public Library, so I'm excited for that. I found this book that I'd never heard of before, Red Island House by Andrea Lee, and this takes place on the island of Madagascar, and that is a setting that I have never even heard of a book being written in before. I think this is kind of a contemporary. Shay is a Black American professor with an adventurous streak. She marries Senna, a brash Italian businessman, and their life carries them from Milan in Italy to a jungle beach in Madagascar where Senna builds a flamboyant vacation villa. And then something happens to him, I believe, and Shay finds herself the reluctant mistress of a sprawling household in a dissolute expatriate colony, caught between her privilege and her instinctive connection to the continent of her ancestors. Can she keep her identity and her marriage intact amid the sensual beauty and lingering colonial sins of this twisted tropical Eden? Shay's struggle to come to terms with Madagascar leads to a dark journey of self-discovery that upends the narrative of the traditional adventure tale. Okay, I'm a little nervous about that because there are hints of an extramarital relationship, but I don't know what happens to the husband and why she is the reluctant mistress of this household. We'll see about that one. I also picked up brand new The Last Heir to Blackwood Library by Hester Fox. This is another one that was on my anticipated reads list. 23-year-old Ivy becomes Lady Hayworth, owner of a sprawling estate on the Yorkshire moors. With nothing to keep her in London since losing her brother in the Great War, she warily makes her way to her new home. But then once there, there are potentially ghosts or these spirits that kind of live in this manor, in particular in the library that's at the center of it all. It's kind of sinister and dark and very gothic feeling, and I love the cover, and I'm very excited to read that one in the fall. At a children's bookstore that we have here, I grabbed 2 books that are not children's books. Isn't that funny? I picked up a nonfiction, The Secret World of Weather by Tristan Gully. It just takes a look at weather, how to read signs in every cloud, breeze, hill, street, plant, animal, and dewdrop. It just sounds so intriguing to me. I do like weather, but it just talks about different kinds of clouds and precipitation and weather and animals and how you can recognize things. I don't know. I just thought it sounded so intriguing. And I also picked up African Town by Irene Latham and Charles Waters. I'm probably going to actually listen to this on audio because Angel, one of my patrons, said the audio is fantastic of this. But this is inspired by the true story of the last American slave ship. It is written in verse, so the audio is not going to be super long. I like with verse books to read as well as listen at the same time, so I'm very excited to have that. I think it's going to be an impactful read. And then the last of my indie bookstore day books is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. That is the same author of Dial A for Aunties, which I also want to read. But this is an elderly Chinese woman who runs a tea shop, comes downstairs. Her apartment, I believe, is above the tea shop. She comes downstairs one morning and finds a man dead in the middle of the floor of her tea shop. Before she calls the police, she sees a flash drive in his hand and grabs it and takes it because she's convinced she's going to be able to discover who the murderer is, because she's convinced the murderer will return to the tea shop to find this flash drive. And so she begins kind of scrutinizing and paying more attention to her customers. And in the meantime, she gets to know these people who frequent her shop, and she begins to care about them and how can one of these people be the murderer. So it sounds like it's going to be kind of a comedy of errors, almost a light-hearted mystery. It just sounds like it's going to be a lovely read. I have treated myself for a couple-month subscription at the bookshelf Thomasville to their middle grade book box. And so I haven't yet even cut the seal of this, but it's from the bookshelf Thomasville. Annie B. Jones has a podcast called From the Front Porch that I occasionally listen to, and I am very excited. This was a treat for myself in the middle of when my brother Jordan was in the hospital for a couple months earlier this year. It was like a little treat to myself. So for April or May, I believe May, here's your monthly happy mail. Yes, it is. Oh, it's packaged up in some brown paper. Oh, I've never heard of this. Lola Weaver Swims Upstream. Not since Ramona Quimby has a character marched right out of a book with so much bravado, humor, and heart. By Polly Farquhar. Lola Weaver Swims Upstream. Fun. I like that I've never heard of it before. This summer, nothing is going right for Lola. She's stuck in summer school with a teacher who's out to get her, and her Ohio town, which is supposed to be booming with tourists, has a mostly dried up lake. Even the ice cream shack isn't open. But the saddest thing is, her whole family is still trying to cope with her grandfather's death. Even Papa's dog Hank is mourning, howling outside all night. Finally, Hank is sent to a farm across the lake, and it's all Lola's fault. She knows she has to get Hank back. In a tippy canoe, she crosses the almost dried out lake to steal Hank back and to make her grandmother happy again. But she runs into Noah, a student in her summer school class, who turns out to be Hank's new owner. Noah seems to really love Hank too. As her plan begins to go wrong, and as she and Noah have to cope with transporting 2 people and a dog in a canoe meant for one, the question of what's best for Hank becomes muddier. Can Lolo manage to do the right thing for once? Okay, I'm not convinced this is going to be the book for me because I don't really love animals. But it's a short little read and maybe I will pick it up. I don't know. It does say at the bottom of this card, if you like Because of Winn-Dixie, you'll love this month's pick. And I did like Because of Winn-Dixie. So I will give it a chance and see. It's always fun to be introduced to a new book. So we'll see if I like that one. And then finally, I have this package from Book Outlet. I'm not sure why it's wrapped in this plastic. It's never come wrapped in plastic before. So I did bring my scissors over. Let me open this real quick. I don't like that they've started doing their boxes with this pull tab. It makes them harder to reuse. It's kind of a bummer. And I'm never very good at getting the pull tab off. Let's see how I do this time. Yeah, unsuccessful. It's such a bummer because now this box is totally unreusable. This whole section just ripped off. This just ripped off. I like to recycle my boxes. Now this is a worthless box. Okay, let's see what I got. Woo-hoo-hoo. I'm excited. I forgot. Okay, the first thing I see are these two Tundra editions of Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea, books 1 and 2 in the Anne of Green Gables series. I love this cover. I have multiple copies of the Anne of Green Gables series. It is my favorite series, and I just absolutely love these illustrations on the cover. They're so sweet. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on Book Outlet. When they have these, I'm going to try to get all of them. But I just grabbed books 1 and 2 this first time. I picked up another book in a middle grade series, book 2 in the Myrtle Hardcastle series, How to Get Away with Myrtle. This is by Elizabeth C. Bunce. I received the first book in a book box during middle grade March from Between the Bookends. So I'm excited to have the second one of that series, another middle grade, well, a middle grade mystery series. Another middle grade that I picked up mainly because of the cover is called Cinders and Sparrows by Stefan Bachman. That cover is stunning. It's a little interesting because it's a wider, it's almost like a square book. And I think this is going to be a retelling of Cinderella. I picked up a couple more middle grade. This one is Shooting Kabul by N.H. Senzai. Fadi never imagined he'd start middle school in Fremont, California, thousands of miles away from his home in Kabul, and half a world away from his missing 6-year-old sister, Miriam. Adjusting to life in the U.S. isn't easy for Fadi's family, and as the events of September 11th unfold, the prospects of locating Miriam in war-torn Afghanistan seem slim. When a photography competition with a grand prize of a trip to India is announced, Fadi sees this as his chance to return to Afghanistan and find his sister. But can one photo really bring Miriam home? Based in part on Ms. Sanzai's husband's own experience fleeing Soviet-controlled Afghanistan in 1979, Shooting Kabul is a powerful story of hope, love, and perseverance. I'm very interested in that. I love books set in that part of the world. Love, love, love. I grabbed a Patty Callahan book, Surviving Savannah. I have enjoyed Once Upon a Wardrobe by her and also Becoming Mrs. Lewis by her. And this one is about a luxury steamship that sinks in 1838 with Savannah's elite on board. Their fates were forgotten until the wreck was found 180 years later. I love books that highlight a part of history that is lesser known, so I'm excited to read that. I did pick up this book by Kelly Barnhill, who wrote The Girl Who Drank the Moon and The Ogress and the Orphans, which I'm going to be reading very soon. This one is called The Witch's Boy, and I hadn't even heard of this, but when I saw her name, I was like, oh wait, I know who that is. When Ned and his identical twin brother tumble from their raft into a raging river, only Ned survives. Villagers are convinced the wrong boy lived. Across the forest that borders his village, the daughter of the Bandit King is haunted by her mother's last words. The wrong boy will save your life and you will save his. When the Bandit King comes to steal the magic Ned's mother is meant to protect, these two meet. Can they trust each other long enough to cross a dangerous enchanted forest and stop the war about to boil over between their two kingdoms? I'm excited to find another book from her that I'd never heard of before. Another middle grade that I picked up kind of based on the cover is called Beyond Me by Annie Donworth Chikamatsu. So this one is going to take place in Japan on March 11th, 2011, when there was an earthquake and then a massive tsunami. And it just kind of rocked the country to its core. And we're going to follow a young girl in the midst of all of that. That sounds amazing to me. I did pick up 2 Miss Marple Agatha Christie books, The Body in the Library and The Moving Finger. These are the first 2, I believe, in the Miss Marple series, if you will. And I love these floral covers. Really, really pretty. I've never read a Miss Marple mystery from Agatha Christie, so I'm looking forward to reading those. And maybe I'll do it in the summer because those are very pretty summery covers. Another summery kind of book is called One Night on the Island by Josie Silver. The remote Irish island she's booked is a far cry from London, but at least it's a chance to hunker down in a luxury cabin and indulge in some self-care while she figures out the next steps. Okay, so we follow Cleo, who's taking a solo retreat, and we also follow Mac, whose life in Boston is falling apart. And then a mix-up with the bookings mean both have reserved the same hideaway on exactly the same dates. I'm down for that. And then a nonfiction that looks really gross. I'm gonna talk to them about this because this is disgusting. The cover of this is so dirty. It's so dirty. It's like stained pink out here. I've never gotten a book from Book Outlet that is this messed up. Whoa. Anyways, it's a nonfiction by Annie F. Downs. Annie Downs has a podcast. I believe her podcast is called That Sounds Fun. Something about fun. The joys of being an amateur, the power of falling in love, and why you need a hobby. But all about fun and what is fun to you and making sure that you include fun things in your life. Oh my word. She like has a list in here of people. I don't know who those people are, but people who have sent in things that are fun to them. Road trips with best friends, going to the Holy Land, adventures with my husband, hot bath in a celebrity mag, petting an elephant, warm sun, Bible open, listening, ice skating or swing dancing. There's like pages and pages of that. So all along, like here's the title page, but it's on the other side. And then the real title page, and there's more of them. So there's just so many of them. Even in the middle, there's more. So that's kind of fun. I'm just really disappointed with this dust jacket. I mean, the inside cover is pretty plain, but it's nicer than this dust jacket, so I might just leave it like this. We'll see. But that is the end. I'm not going to hold these up because that's a lot of books. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below if you've read any of the books I mentioned here today. If any of them sound good to you and might get added to your TBR, let me know. If you see any that you want me to read sooner rather than later, let me know that as well. And that's all. That's all. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.